Okay.
Okay, here we are once again looking at chapters 80 and 81 this week. So we're looking at a model of reality and time using the delta T loop to project everything significant that could possibly happen in our system. And then a model of reality and time, viable alternate realities in history. We'll set the intention just to come together and hold compassionate, loving space for each other so that we can really do our best to understand this material that's offered through MBT and do our best to understand each other, really seek to understand one another and open up to a big picture perspective of reality, the nature of reality, and share our personal journeys navigating this reality. So what did you guys think of these chapters?
I did not like them. I will be completely honest. I did not enjoy them at all.
And that's why you're drinking wine?
That's why I'm drinking wine. Well, when you guys were like, oh, it's like in an hour, I'm like, are they serious? I was like, oh, I have to like, and then I felt like I should read it more, but I didn't like the chapters. I specifically do not like the word vector. I haven't realized. I just thought it was hard, and I really had a tough time focusing. I feel like I haven't had this much difficulty. Then there was a chapter, remember when Maureen were with us?
Uh-huh.
And everybody was like, oh my God, it was like that hard. So, tough for me.
I didn't mind it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. Because I guess I'm more of the left-brained, and I kind of understand what he's trying to say, and I liked how he sort of brings it in and then brings it out again, but in a wider scale, right?
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to hear you talk about it. 'Cause I don't get it at all.
Hopefully, I can explain to you.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't like chapter 80. As I was reading it, I'm like, we're gonna have nothing to talk about because I'm not underlining anything here. And then I found myself like forcing myself to highlight something so that we could bring it into the book club. I actually like chapter 81. There were a few parts that I was like, oh, cool, interesting. So 81 got better, but yeah, 80, not feeling it. Okay. Anything from the first like 3 pages, Daniel?
Let me just see here. Oops.
Well, I will start. Actually,
Sure,
right, first paragraph in the first, he says, let's generalize and broaden our model by looking at the possibility that everything significant that can happen does happen. And what I think about is, how do you know? How do you know that everything that can happen does happen? Right? It's like the question, like you don't, or the statement that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Or do you just feel that you know?
Well, I guess it's just sort of, I mean, and this is probably like a nonsensical thing to really even discuss, but it's like everything significant that can happen does happen. Like, how does he know that? Or that's just a theory?
Yeah.
Good question. Is it one of those philosophical questions where, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right. Right.
Because he does say here, like, let's look at the possibility. So yeah, it's just a theory, right? The possibility that everything that does happen actually happens, or everything that could happen can happen.
Are you guys active on the, what is it called? Like the
forum? No.
The forum, right? So something that one of the gentlemen that like leads that group, he talks frequently about Indra's net. Do you know Indra's net?
No.
No.
I don't really either, but from what I've read of it, it's basically like it's a metaphor, right? And it's like, it describes a web where there is like a diamond. I think it's a diamond or like a water droplet in a net, and every other diamond reflects every other diamond, right? Okay. Let me see if I can like Google it really quickly. it's Indra's net is a metaphor, is a Sanskrit metaphor used to illustrate the concept of emptiness and dependent origination in Buddhist philosophy. If you guys Google it, there's like a cool picture there. Indra's net has a multifaceted jewel at each vertex, and each jewel is reflected in all other jewels. My point being that basically when he was talking about this, like here's this point that Indra's net is a more philosophical and like a more visual equivalent of what he's talking about here, where one vector is reflecting every other vector, right? And then you have all the possibilities going off of there.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So that's the visualization of it.
So everything is connected to everything? Is that what he's trying to say?
Yeah. And that everything's sort of connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see it as like, it's like the causality and a way to record a way to record everything and put it in the database, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, everything's data, right? So.
Yeah.
Anything else on that first page or the next one?
It was just not really hiding anything, but it was just more of his explanation of how all the iterations create the future states and the sort of the possibilities of what can become real, and how it sort of calculates n degrees of simulation for you, and it stores everything. I think we talked about last week, but it goes into a deeper perspective here.
Yeah, it goes in deeper. It goes in really deep. To the point where I was like, okay, I don't need to know this anymore. Like, top level, I don't need to dive this deep, man. Like, how is it useful? Why do I need to know this?
When he talks into actualization and unactualized, state vectors, I think he calls it, right? And he has that diagram, and I had to pull it off a PDF document because where I'm reading it was really hard to read. But when I looked at the drawing, I was like, I had to study it for like 10 minutes to kind of figure it out. So, and he talks about OS, and then OS. I guess he calls it OS prime, and then OS double prime, and it goes down further and further and further. I can see how it could get confusing for people.
But you liked it, right?
I liked it.
Yeah,
I can follow the path in terms of how he gets it.
See, I think this is written for you, right?
It's written for the left brain people, right?
Right. Like, so, and like the concept of internet is written for somebody like me, so like I can like kind of get this like on a very like superficial level, but not really. Mostly it was like my eyes were like going cross-eyed, rolling back into my head.
I don't know if you guys remember, but on our last book club, I was saying I wanted clarification around one part of the book. It was okay. So he said in the book, he says, the complex configuration of digital energy and self-organizing process we call consciousness forms the foundation of reality in the form of an interactive consciousness evolution fractal ecosystem simulation, where what is actual and what is simulated are one and the same.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, I need him to clarify this. Like, what's he saying exactly? So I asked him, like, are you just saying that consciousness and the simulation are one and the same because they're both just information? Like, they're both at the basic fundamental level, ones and zeros, often. Right. So he said that yes, but more that the simulation of virtual realities is also a part of the source. Our PMR simulation is also a subset of the source. So I think what he's trying to illustrate is that we're all extensions of the source. We are source, right? We all are LCS at our fundamental level. So, because when he refers to it that way, like he's like, yes, but more that we're just all part of the source. It's like it always goes back to that, you know. But he breaks it down and explains all these different ways for those really left-brained people that need to understand and get it logically.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other question I had that came up last time too was, remember I was saying like, how exactly does it render? Like, I want to understand how this reality is rendered. You know, like, what's taking that draw? And he said it's happening within the big computer. So it's the big computer takes that draw, makes that draw, makes the random draw from the base, and then that would go into the data stream that's going to the IUOC.
I'd like to find out how does the TBC know how many iterations it needs to go before it stops? Like what makes that decision?
It's probably just programmed, isn't it? Don't they just program that in so it's automatic?
I don't know.
You're the programmer, man.
Well, I don't know. It's like there has to be a condition where it says, okay, I've done enough iterations and I can stop the simulation for this specific option, right? Well, what drives that? Is there something else that's conscious out there that's driving that, or is it, or I don't know.
I think it all happens within the big computer.
Is that maybe related where he talks about at one point in, I think both of these chapters, where what is significant, meaning important, right? So, and then they get rid of the things that are not significant.
Yeah, he talks about that in here. Oh, yeah. Before we go to that, did you guys have anything else from this pages, the second and third page?
Oh, it's right here. It's right here on the second page. On page 682, second paragraph, second sentence. I want to define the concept of significant states. A significant state is one that represents some unique, viable, meaningful configuration of OS, even if it is perhaps somewhat unlikely. So is that sort of related to your question, Daniel, where it's like those, say there's 10 possibilities, and then only 4 of them are significant. They just get rid of the other 6?
I wouldn't say it gets rid of it. I'm just saying, where does it stop? Like, how does it know that it's met a significant point? And how does it know that, well, I should stop here or I need to continue creating the simulation points, right?
Right.
There has to be a certain condition that the TBC is defined for itself, for example.
Yeah, it must have defined it for himself.
But how does it define itself, or who or what defines it, right?
And I think that's going too deep. Like, we don't need to know all
that. I understand that.
Daniel,
I'm just curious.
You're worse than me, man.
It just happened. Just let it happen.
Just let it happen. Just let it happen.
Let it be.
Okay, what about from the next page over with the chart? On there?
Yeah, it took a while for me to understand that chart. Did you guys get it?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Like I said, I just was like, okay, you're going on and on. I don't need to go through with it.
Yeah.
Right. To just know that you just like understand like the high concept, not
the high level, top level. Oh.
This is one thing about the book. Look at this, just fell out.
Oh, just now?
Yeah. Now my big book is now 3 books. Whoops.
I've heard of people who do that purposefully, so they can take them. I've heard of people who do that purposefully. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes kind of sense. Now
break it into 3.
Now.
They break it into 3, yeah, because it's cheaper to buy the one big book than it is the 3.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So some people buy the one big and then break it into 3.
It's kind of a bummer. Okay. Things happen and you deal with them. Like this book.
There you go.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I liked the chart. I just felt like I looked at it for 4 seconds and I was like, okay, I get it. I didn't feel like And it's like, I just get the idea. I feel like that if you if you look up a picture of what Indra's net looks like, it's the same thing, right? It's just more art, like an artful description of this, I think. And I think that's why the guy on the forum always is talking about Indra's net.
Okay. I had something on the next page over on page 684.
Okay.
So I guess it's like the second paragraph down. This, it starts, this enumeration and determination of potentially significant state vectors does not need to be accomplished by computational brute force, right? So before we were talking about like, how does it do that? Like it must have a huge memory capability, but it's not as big a task as it sounds, right? It's actually, it's not like it needs to. So further on down in the middle of the paragraph, he says, after all, evolution is the unparalleled master of developing efficient and effective processes within each specific operating environment. For example, such software could be used to remove all the extremely unlikely, insignificant, uninteresting, unproductive, degenerative, duplicative, repetitive, meaningless, and useless states to form a complete set of useful alternate reality state vectors, specifying everything significant that possibly could happen in our system during the next actual delta t.
Didn't he also say that anything that's created is stored in TBC? So now he's saying that, you know, we can throw in a software program that can get rid of all the insignificant stuff.
Yeah, insignificant stuff, like for example, and we brought this up to you last time, if it, like, it doesn't need to record that I went like this. It can just record that her hand went up to her face. And then if you replay it back, it could actually go like this, but that's insignificant. You don't need to know the details of that, right?
Right.
And yeah, so he's saying that the reason it works so well is because that's the nature of evolution. That's the fundamental process, is to be able to do that, improve itself over time, right?
Yep.
Anything else from that page or the next page?
Yeah, I liked when he started, the one part I did like from this chapter is when he started talking about these alternate realities. It's like maybe the second sentence of the second paragraph on page 685. These OS state vectors constitute parallel, possible, or potential future realities of OS, or from a PMR-centric view, parallel, possible, or potential future universes. Sometimes travelers in NPR get into these parallel realities, I skip down a little bit, and fail to realize they represent reality states that were or are merely possible and not necessarily probable. Wow, liked that.
Yeah, I thought somebody would highlight that. I remember reading that and thinking that somebody's going to highlight that, I know.
It's one of those things where he knows something and is like, He's been to these other realities, right?
Right.
Because he goes on to say, because it's so real, like it feels so real, you can't even distinguish between this reality and that hypothetical reality, right?
That is truly mind-boggling. If you think about that, like, that's just really fascinating, because something like, you ever had some sort of event, like you wouldn't know, like say you died a year ago and now you're just living out some alternate reality. You don't know.
Yeah, I know. I've thought about that too. But
I think it's one of those things we don't need to know, right? It's just that we're living in this.
We don't need to know if we're dead.
State.
I see dead people. What's that movie again?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, but he says until you can't tell the difference until your focus comes back to this PMR. So we have that focus, right? You know what I mean? It's not like we would unintentionally stumble into a different reality and then get lost there or get stuck there, because we'd bring our focus back to here. Either we'd wake up, you know, or we'd realize. Because remember, didn't we ask him like what would happen? Oh, Keith asked him on our chat. he's like, if I go out of body, what happens if I don't want to go back to my body? Tom's like, no, you have to go back to your body. He's like, yeah, that's part of the rule set. And then he's also like, well, you know, anything can happen, but I've never seen that happen. That's highly unlikely that would ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's part of the rule set, part of how it works.
Right. Well, remember he talks, I think it's probably in the first part of the book where they stopped him from doing some stuff when he was a kid because he was like getting too weird.
Yeah.
They were like, we have to have you be like a little bit normal.
Yeah, so you can't go out of body anymore.
Yeah.
And he was banned for like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
But he still had guides and he still had that communication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else on that page?
No.
How about the next page?
I'm looking at my PDF book and trying to compare it with my ebook. You know what I think I'm doing? I'm just gonna just read my PDF from now on.
Or you could read the book that you bought, the actual physical.
You know what? I don't know where I put it. That's the thing.
Oh, really? No.
I think it's in the garage.
Wow. Nope. I didn't have anything for a while. This is where I think I was getting glazed over.
I just had one sentence. I don't know why. I really liked this sentence. He just says, the history of our system is a sequential record of the actualized present moments of our system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it made it really clear. But on the next page over, he has the aside there, and it's 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph in the aside. It starts, this arrangement, allowing for unique input while maintaining an exhaustive database of possibilities, enables the running of what-if analysis to ascertain the impact of having made specific choices. This type of analysis is often used as an aid to help certain sentient beings that are between physical manifestations in PMR to understand the implications of previous choices and overcome personal belief systems. Such analysis is a typical part of the planning process for more aware beings trying to learn as much as possible from their past experiences before initiating another PMR experience.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I definitely do think about some of that stuff, like, you know, a lot of these philosophies talk about between lives, you have a life review, and that you can see from it's like a comprehensive picture. So you sort of experience this life from your perspective, and you can see like how your decisions and what you did affected other people. So like if we're having this conversation, like how you're interpreting what I'm saying, right? Or you know, if you did something, how people behave, like how they experienced it on the other side. So I do think that's really kind of a fascinating idea. And sometimes I think like that makes me be a little more self-reflective about choices. And I often wonder, I'm like, you know, when that person dies, will they realize how they made me feel, you know? Will they? And I look forward to that day. I'm totally kidding.
But if you're able to read another person's data set, you could feel how or see how that person feels right now.
Are you allowed to do that?
To a certain extent, you can. You can never fully experience them. What's that?
It's like a little bit invasive.
Well, Tom does it all the time.
Yeah.
He does it?
Yeah, but I mean, you can do it to a certain extent. Then the more you know somebody, the more accurate it is. Mm-hmm. So you can never like fully experience what it's like to be that person because you haven't had all their experiences, right?
Right.
But to some degree you can, and so and that's called empathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, are we anything else from that? 687. Oh, that was
That was 687. No, I don't have anything there.
688.
Nothing.
Can I, before we move on, so the paragraph after the one you read, Vanessa, it says, for those who do not understand the larger reality well enough or do not have necessary control, others typically guide this process for them. This analysis capability is generally available to any NPMR or PMR being who is sufficiently aware and in control of their mental facilities and intent with NPMR. So do you feel like when you're thinking, right, are you in NPMR?
No, I don't.
So you're saying when you're thinking, are your thoughts in NPMR versus PMR? Because they're not.
Where's your
are
mind?
your thoughts real, right?
Kind of. Like, I feel like if you're daydreaming, right? Doesn't he kind of say that daydreaming is like a way to access the NPMR, right? So where's the line between like thinking, like if you're in deep thought, right? You're like, what you're saying, Daniel, are your thoughts physical? They are non-physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it depends where the thoughts are coming from. Like, are those thoughts coming from your ego and your fear, your reality? Because he talks about how you can still use the intellect, you can still analyze, and you can do so from the being level, right? And you can do that from the being level, but in order to do that, you really have to be rid of your fear and your ego.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of the times when I'm thinking, I don't see myself as very evolved. You know what I mean? So I think it's entangled with a lot of fear and ego. Yeah. But like in a meditative state, though, I can have thoughts that come up, and that feels like I'm in an NPMR state. I'm in NPMR.
Mm-hmm.
The day-to-day regular, like this right now, I feel like I'm having thoughts, but I'm here in this PMR.
Right. I feel like when you really think about, well, for me, like when I'm thinking about this sort of stuff, some of it is tied to ego and fear. Like especially when I'm like, I don't get it and I don't agree with it, right? I think that's typically like somehow attached to something. Like when I was having a really hard time understanding what ego was all about, that was because I felt like my concept of self was really important. And I didn't want to like be like, well, how can that not be important, you know? So anyways, I guess I just feel like sometimes when you're in thought, like when you're talking about things like philosophical issues, right, or topics, it seems like you're less connected here, right? Because you can go back and forth pretty quick, right?
You can.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's a good insight. Like, you know, when your thoughts when are your thoughts from the ego and when your thoughts are from the being level? That's a good question. How do you know?
It's like, why are we attracted to things like this? Like, or in really kind of really going through like actually reading this and discussing it, right? And I'm wondering, is it because it's sort of this egoless thing where you're talking about these topics that are not fear-based, right?
I think we're just curious and we want to find an answer.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like I'm nudged along the way, like especially this morning. I woke up at 5. I've been trying to wake up at 5 every morning, and then especially this morning I had to read it because I hadn't read it. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing today. And I felt like, I don't know, like I was nudged to get up early and read it, and then as I'm reading it, my brain is like wandering. But I feel like I keep getting nudged back. Yeah. So in that sense, maybe it is maybe there is a stronger connection with NPMR.
Well, it's like this helps you get there, right? Like just
Mm.
talking types of things. Maybe like Vanessa, for you and me, it's not as much the formulas and the charts, even though we wanted to see them, right? But it's like for Daniel, that really helps him understand that. But for you and me, it's like the conceptual ideas that are more like the higher, you don't need the detail as much, right? But what we're discussing helps you get there, helps you think about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to the book. What did you guys have anything for the next page over, the 688?
No.
I had nothing until 690.
Yeah, I had one paragraph, 688. I don't know why, but let's see. The very last paragraph on 688. During the next actual delta t, real time in our system moves forward one increment. One and only one of our system little I state is actualized to become our present moment. I don't know why I highlighted that, but I did. And
I think he's saying that all these different possibilities, only one of the possibilities can be real.
yeah, and I think
I can experience it, right?
Yeah, and I think it just came to me why I highlighted it now is because, okay, so yeah, like you said, only one can become real, one is actualized. All the other possibilities are just that possibility. So we often hear alternate realities, and we think these alternate realities are like actual alternate realities. But according to this model,
actualized, yeah.
Yeah, according to this model, those were just potential probabilities that could have happened, possibilities that could have happened. But yeah, only this one was the actualized one.
Didn't he say that we could actually go back to that specific point in time
And
see what it would be like, and then TBC would recalculate the that moving forward from there.
Yeah, he does say that.
Okay, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, because then you can see what would have happened.
What if, right?
What if I married this other guy? You know,
yeah.
What would happen then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you would be living a different reality, though, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so. Different experience.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, you had something on 690?
Yeah, the last paragraph, just the first sentence or first two sentences. Although TBC software can be exceptionally clever and efficient, it does not have to be perfect. Perfect processes like infinite processes are necessary to development of this model. It's good that TBC isn't a perfect machine or a perfect, what's the right word to use?
Computer?
Yeah, computer, let's say. It has bugs in itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And nothing's perfect, nothing's infinite.
Yeah. So it's good to just have him say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't need to be perfect either.
Yeah. But how many times do we want to be perfect, right?
So we actually can't be perfect. If the bigger system isn't, we can't be.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying how many people don't wait for the right time, the perfect time to start something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably just an excuse based on fear.
Well,
right?
I think it's fair. Yeah, it's fear-based.
Yeah. Totally. Fear paralyzes us.
Mm-hmm.
From wanting to try new things or do anything out of the fear of, not getting it right. Yeah. Fear of the unknown. All these fears. Yeah. Hey, on to 81, a model of reality and time, viable alternate realities and histories. I don't know, I have the first paragraph. I don't know, he says, big digital bang, big set of initial conditions, big part of the simulation. I just liked the different alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, our scientists use the word big because we're such a tiny part of the entire universe. However, in a bigger picture, our physical universe is neither big nor exclusive. He goes on next. Nevertheless, Big Bang is a catchy and likable term, even if it is not that big, and even if the Big Bang is only a digital one in the calculation space within the space-time simulation section of TBC. I like how I explain that because I think we all think of it as physical, as something that actually, happened. But when we can see that it's just this simulation that happened in the big computer, in calculation space, it gives us a clear understanding of how things actually work.
Mm-hmm.
But it did happen, right?
It happened in the calculation space, yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the same thing as like we are real in the calculation space.
Yeah. Exactly.
But didn't he also say that I don't know if he did say it or not, but we've evolved, like the TBC would create a certain simulation of the certain variables and it didn't work out, so it would go back and redo things and just tweak a little bit until what it is now.
Yeah, until he got it just right.
Just right.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't know how many times it would have tried this.
Yeah, it could be millions, billions, trillions, right?
Or maybe it got lucky on the first shot. Yeah. Anything else on that first page?
I had this part, the second paragraph, the second sentence. As always, the fundamental process was in the driver's seat. All possible states were generated, but only those universes supporting PMRs that were uniquely useful, productive, or significant were propagated forward. One of them became our universe, while others evolved in their own dimensions. I guess that's what I was just talking about earlier. Things would just keep evolving until it became right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I highlight things and it felt like it was important at that time, and then you're trying to remember what it was that you're.
I know. That's why it's good to make a little note beside it, which I don't often do, but sometimes I do, and it helps. Anything on the next page over, the 692?
Mm-mm.
I just had the very last sentence. Just the accumulated database of everything that could have possibly happened since the PMR virtual reality was created provides a huge resource for data mining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just use that because I remember Christine, you were like, why does it have to record everything that ever could have happened? Like, what's the point of that?
Right.
And then it's just saying it's a good resource for data mining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, could someone actually go in there and take that data and kind of hack it? Or does TBC has all these systems in place that prevents that from happening?
What do you mean hack it?
Well, what I'm saying, my kids, they play games a lot, and they've got a patch, for example, to give them more lives or to give them more strength. Right? Can another subset go into our data set or go into their own data set or whatever it is and say, I can give you these extra powers?
Well, if you think about it, so that would be what you're talking about is accessing what is it called? The Hall of Records?
Akashic records.
Yes. Yeah. The Akashic records. So if you go and you look into the records, right? I think what you're talking about, Daniel, is you have that insight as to knowing alternative options, how things would have worked out. So you get that information, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you get extra kryptonite or whatever, but you do get extra insight into.
Well, I remember that when you were saying that, I was remembering that Westward episode where that gal took the tablet and had all these attributes and said, I want this, I want more confidence, I want more of this, and she beat herself, right?
She upped all of her powers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you watch it? Vanessa.
I will, guys. I will. I'm a busy lady.
It starts on the 24th of April, the new one.
Ooh.
I don't know why. I looked that up today.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
I know. I'm going to do a countdown. Starting on the 24th of this month.
One more 30 days before.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I meant by hacking, is going in and changing certain attributes of yourself or another sentient being to give you an advantage, right?
I don't know.
I think so. That you can hack the system, and that's where the psi uncertainty principle comes in, to kind of protect us from hacking the system in a manner that would be detrimental to the evolution of our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can hack it, but the LCS won't help you, right? Like it's something that happens. It's kind of a loophole, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you'll get no assistance, basically.
Okay.
And Tom has talked about that a little bit. Like he talks about how, and that's how, people in Africa, they do voodoo, and they have the dolls and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can happen, but yeah.
Okay.
The next paragraph down on page 693, very last sentence I had, where he says, nevertheless, the study of such what if world lines or sequential traces through the unactualized state vector database can reveal the long-term impact of decisions, choices, and intent, an excellent educational and evaluative tool. Going on to the next paragraph, second sentence, he says, one can sequence or thread his or her way through unactualized consecutive reality states that are our system derivatives in a huge multitude of ways that are intentionally controllable and definable only by a steady, low noise, focused, aware consciousness. So I guess it's just repeating what we had looked at earlier, but it just goes to show how important it is to have that, to be able to steady one's focus, to have that ability to focus your intent, and also to have that low noise conscious awareness, right? And again, I think that's why all these different teachings and spiritualities, they point back to meditation. It's all about meditation. It's like clearing the mind, having good focus.
Right.
That's step A, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's your meditation going, guys?
It's going well.
It's being interrupted by my Westworld watching. No, I'm not doing it.
I'm part of this Muse group on Facebook.
Oh.
And I brought into the I spoke about including binaural beats with Muse, and people are going, "Oh, that's a great idea! I got to try it," and then they're saying, "Yeah, I hear more birds. I can get into this meditative state much faster." And
wow,
and I thought, that's cool, right? And then they actually talked about me during one of those during a Wednesday podcast, and said, "Daniel talked about using binaural beats," and he goes, "I don't know what binaural beats is." And then someone looked at it, I goes, "Oh, hey, this is kind of cool." By going to different states, right, with different frequencies. And I think we'll have to explore that.
Which ones do you use? Like, do you use some of Tom's stuff, or like?
Yeah, I've used Tom's audio along with the Muse app, and what I'll do is I'll turn the feedback volume all the way down. I'll turn the bird volume just slightly above, just slightly, so I can actually hear it. So I'll be listening to Tom's audio beats, binaural beats, and then I'll hear the bird chirping. And then every so often you hear 10 birds chirping all at once, and then it sort of goes away, and then it comes back. So it's really cool.
The birds are a good sign, right?
The birds are a good sign, and birds means that you're at the lowest state. Right? You're at a very, very calm state. And then when you look at the graph, you can see how low it is compared to when you're not using a binaural beat. You're very active.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So it's interesting to see how his binaural beats really affect, and you can actually see the results of it now because it's all graphed out.
Because it's on your app.
Yeah, there's an app that works with your Muse headband.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you meditate before then? Like, do you feel like that tool helped you, like, because it has, like, you know, an app?
Well, it's got biofeedback, right? So you know when you're at a calmer meditative state. So it's got active, neutral, and calm, right? So you learn how to breathe, and you learn how to relax, learn how to control your mind to bring yourself from this active to the neutral to the calm state.
Right.
Right.
But do you feel like since you got that, now you actually enjoy meditation more?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very much so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's actually fun because you don't feel as frustrated. I remember when I first started using it, it's like, I can't get into this calm state. I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, there's something wrong with me, right? But
Right.
there's like 10 modules you go through, and it sort of teaches you how to relax, how to calm yourself, and learn how to breathe and things like that.
Yeah. Nice. Interesting.
Yeah. But with Tom's binaural beats included with this Muse app, it's bringing at least myself into a higher dimension where I hear more birds. I'm able to get into this meditative state for longer periods of time.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How's yours going, Vanessa?
I haven't really been keeping up a daily practice with meditation, but I feel more aware in my day-to-day activity. Yeah, I feel more aware, and I feel just a lot more aware of my ego. Like I notice my ego all the time, and I'm like, man, have I always been like that? It's like, yeah, my ego's always up in there, having conversations with people. You know, it's always, yeah.
I feel like I was thinking about that today because, you know, this reading still is challenging for me. It's like this was harder this week than I feel like normal, but I do think despite it being difficult, I still think it's worthwhile. And I still think that it is something, like, I'm kind of proud of the fact that we've been doing this for a while, you know?
I know, I am too. I'm like, I can't believe how far we've gone, you guys. Even my kids are like, whoa, you read a lot. Check that out.
That's awesome, isn't it? It's a great
And
feat in itself.
Yeah. And I really think that it's like one of those things, like, I know you guys have a lot of activities and stuff that you do, like, with your groups and stuff up there. But, you know, for me, I feel like I'm very what's the word I'm looking for? But, I've been consistent with this, like consistently showing up week after week, like doing something feels good. You know, like I feel like it's like you learn something from that, just that alone, like, you know, that you keep doing it, even though it's hard, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we only have like 10 chapters left.
I know.
Is that it? Is there only 10 chapters left?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, you're right.
92 is the last chapter?
Yep.
Whoa. That's like a month, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God. And then what? Are we going to go through it again? Take a little break. I know there's other people who want it. Gail wants to do the book club.
I wouldn't mind doing it again, because that way I have a higher awareness of what's going on, right?
Right.
I'd like to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do it again. I didn't do book one. I read book one on my own a long time ago, though, but I would do it again to go through book one.
Yeah.
A couple, and the rest.
Cool. Okay. Well, what else did we have from this chapter? What are we on? Page 692? Oh, 693. Yeah, the last paragraph there. Did you guys have that? Were you talking about reality? What did you have from there?
An unintentional experience of an unactualized computational reality is indistinguishable from the experience you are having now, except that it disappears when you shift your focus back to PMR. As PMR tends to disappear when your awareness becomes preoccupied with a mantra, a problem, entertainment, or befuddled by drugs. That's what I was talking about. That I feel like if you were, like, say, you know, you're trying to work out a problem, that you're in this different space, right? Or you're, you know, you're thinking about some of these philosophical things, like thinking about the fact that you may be in an unactualized computational reality right now and you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't, it's kind of a fascinating concept to think about that, you know?
Yeah. The thing, I guess we have to look at like what is PMR, what is NPMR, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are they?
Well, I think it's kind of obvious what PMR is, right? But I think that one thing that I guess I would answer that question with a question, which is, what is mind? So you know how we talk about a brain versus a mind, and
Yeah.
where does the mind sit on that cusp between PMR and NPMR?
Okay. I think he says that the mind is an NPMR. And the mind is basically, I'm seeing it as our IUOC, or our free will awareness unit.
Right. I remember him saying that as well, that if there was another sentient being coming into our PMR, it would be considered as the sentient NPMR, even though we're in our own PMR.
To that sentient being, it would perceive this as NPMR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm understanding PMR and NPMR
They're
is,
identical.
yeah, all it is a data stream. Just a data stream.
Right.
So my IUC is getting sent a data stream, and I interpret that data stream to be this PMR. And then when I disconnect from that data stream, either go to sleep, meditate, take drugs, read a book, like he was saying, then I disconnect from this data stream, and then I connect to a new data stream, and then I'll interpret it as NPMR, because the rule set is strict, this is fun.
Did somebody just mention you're snacking on WhatsApp?
What?
Yeah.
It's so funny because I never have noticed it before, but I did just.
Really?
Not really, no.
You haven't seen me snacking this whole time?
I'm sure I've seen it. I just haven't like noticed it.
Okay.
You know? Like registered that you were doing
it's a habit I've fallen into now. Now I get my snack, I get my tea, and I come sit down for my book.
I'm ready. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that last paragraph there, that was interesting. Just a little bit up, he says, it is relatively easy for a novice explorer of the reality wide web network to get lost or confused in these parallel worlds, right? The explorer comes back with information that seemed to be correct and clear at the time. However, later analysis often indicates that paranormally derived information does not make sense, has little PMR value, or is shown to be false or inconsistent by subsequent events or information within PMR. It is easy to end up wandering unknowingly in the unactualized data matrix of the big computer because it appears as real as any experience can be. Yeah, so again, another reason to be open-minded yet skeptical of information that we retrieve. Anything else on that page? I guess that's the last paragraph. About 694. Anybody have anything from the top paragraph? The very first sentence I had, where he says, the set of state vectors comprising the history thread of our system, our system present, and the set of our system probable futures is no more or less real or dynamic than the set of state vectors that comprises the unactualized past. All are of equal reality and validity. So that's really interesting because we feel like what actually happened, well, that's what actually happened, and that's important. That's all. But the unactualized didn't really happen, so I mean, you can kind of write that off. but it's kind of like the same as what he's saying with PMR and NPMR. He's like, it's all real. It's all one and the same. You know, it just depends on your perspective on where you are and how you're interpreting it. And to see what,
why would those unactualized past be as important as what did happen, right? And the reason I ask that is because if it didn't happen, so sort of like what he was saying, I don't know if it was the beginning of this chapter, where like this experience leads to so many other things, right? Those, if it didn't happen, eventually that computation stops, right? But the actual one continues, right? Because we keep making choices based on the ones that we just made, right? So why would those things that didn't happen be as valuable? Like, what would you use them for?
are all equal reality and validity. So they're all kind of the same, you know, like it's not like one is less real than the other. It's all information. It's all information in the database. And that's collected information and stored information. And what is the whole process of us as conscious beings? What's the whole point of us as conscious beings?
To grow up.
Grow up. To learn, right? We grow up by learning and evolving. So this information that's collected and stored in the database, why is it stored there?
Just to help us learn.
Exactly. And when we learn, we grow up. So it's all serves the same purpose.
So many people don't get to see that though, right? Or is that because like you would see that when you do your like life review in between states? Is that why it's maybe stored?
Yeah, you can even do it here now.
Right, but a lot of people don't do that, right?
No, we don't even do it.
We don't even do it.
It's there where we can access it whenever we want. It's just that we don't do it.
Right. But there must be a reason why they hang on to that info, right? Like, is it because in those, you know, intermediary states you do review it and you kind of examine those, you know, roads not taken?
Yeah, remember
here's what could have happened to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Remember earlier in this chapter he said, yeah, in between your life packets, you can go and you can see, you can go and access that information in order to help you learn. But if you're still kind of a newbie, then the guides will do it for you, right? Your guides will do it for you. So other entities will help you to access that information to help you learn and grow up.
You know what? I don't know if I haven't picked up on it, but does Tom talk about these in between life packet states? Like, do you do a lot of growth there? Like, I know that you come here in this PMR because you can have more experiences and you can grow faster, right? But yeah. Doesn't it seem like if we all had if we die and all have the opportunity to look at our lives, to like kind of do a reflective sort of thing, and you would learn something from that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
you do, yeah, you do. Yeah. But it's more kind of like you learn. It's like the in between is learning from a book, because it's showing you and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Now the test is coming in here and applying what you learned from that book, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tom talks about it actually. Did you get a chance to watch our 2-hour chat with him, the question and answers? He talks about it in that.
I did watch a little bit of it. I didn't watch the whole thing. Yeah.
And so towards maybe the middle point, Keith, the older gentleman, he asks a question about the in-between state. And so he talks about what happens in the in-between state and the learning process, and and then comes back. And he's like, and you don't have to come back. He's like, if you wanted to.
Right. I feel like what Tom frequently answers, like the in-between state, is that you stand in a line and you do the right, and so you sort
for some people who are like all freaked out and they're like, what's going on? And then they're
not ready, right?
They're not ready.
Yeah, it sounds like everything's sort of customized to whatever you need.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
But does he talk about like, oh, you get like, there's an opportunity to, so I wonder if like are we being foolish, the three of us, not trying to access that information right now, you know?
Well, like I was saying, that information is kind of like you're learning through reading a book. And then the test is actually here.
While we're here, Vanessa, while we're here, like accessing that info now, right?
Mm-hmm.
While we're here, because this is, like you're saying, this is the real deal, right? So if we can get that information and see how opportunities not taken or how we affected other people.
I feel like we already do by being kind of self-reflective. Like, it's not like we have to go out of body and then go into these Akashic records and go into this library. It's not like that. I feel like I'm super, well, I try to be self-aware and reflective on a moment to moment basis, you know? So where he's talking about you just have to live it, just be it, then that can look very different for everybody.
Right.
So, yeah. A lot of people, most people, I guess, traditionally they've been taught that they have to get into the state, put on binaural beats, get into the state, or, meditate, listen to their mantra, and then go and access the information in the database. And then,
right.
But I don't think it has to be like that. I think you can just kind of do it on the fly through self-awareness and mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think that absolutely, that does make sense that you're trying to be as aware now on the daily.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's use an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do something, I'm trying to think of something from today. I don't know. Well, the other day, I said to my son something that I probably shouldn't have said. And it's not like I have to wait till I die to go back and play that clip of my lifetime to realize I should have done it differently. Like immediately after, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, next time I'll do better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're doing it on the fly. You're course correcting as you're alive.
But your state of awareness is so great now that you catch yourself almost instantaneously, whereas in the past it might have been a week ago. I was like, oh, I said that last week. Why did I do that? It's so stupid. Right?
Yeah. Or not even ever catch yourself.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, well, he deserved it. He shouldn't have been a little brat. You know what I mean? And then that's when I would need the life review to actually take a step back and be like, oh, maybe I was a little harsh. Yeah. Or like he says, some people are like, they're still in that state where that they're like, yeah, he was a brat. I was totally right. That's doing it.
Right.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Christine?
Oh, I get what you're talking about. I think what I'm thinking about are sort of like things that happened in the past that you didn't necessarily know how you affected somebody else, right? Or decisions that you made. So decisions that you made not to go down this path, or it could have been anything about being with a person or taking a job, whatever, right? So if you get the opportunity in the in-between stages to reflect on those things, right, and see that, like, you must be presented those opportunities because there's value attached to them, right? There's an opportunity to learn. So I get what you're talking about, like these sort of things that are happening right now, but if there's things that were in your past that you just don't, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm really saying. I don't know.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. Kind of like more bigger milestone things that happen.
Right.
So like, let's, for example, so when I was 18, I had an opportunity to move to LA. I didn't take that opportunity. Instead, I decided to stay in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So I could now go back to the database and be like, okay, what if I chose to go to LA? What would have happened there? And I could even see like, and what was my intent that prevented me from making that choice? Oh, my intent was fear-based. I was scared of the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen. So because I made this choice out of fear to stay in Vancouver, this is the outcome of my life. But if I would have made the choice out of courage, going from a place of personal power and love, and I went to LA, oh, my life would have turned out like that. Oh, interesting. Okay, so next time, maybe I'll trust my intuition and be courageous.
So you're learning from that situation, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're saying that, I kind of recollect that, okay, well, when you're thinking about that experience, you're now thinking in NPMR versus PMR.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
pulling that memory, but it's not physical, but you can recall it from the data set that TBC has stored for you and say, okay, if I had done that, what would have happened? So now TBC is saying, oh, let's create some more simulation on that.
It's like your imagination.
Your imagination is flowing now. What would happen if I actually went there? Oh, okay, yeah. But that's
Right.
MPR.
And we can do that while we're fully awake and aware.
Exactly.
Yeah. We don't have to have the headphones on, you know? We can,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's an aha moment for me. I think for you guys too.
Yeah, all around. All around. I wonder what would have happened if I went to LA.
I mean, I think those are cool questions, you know, and you can kind of, do you feel like you can sort of imagine what your life would potentially be like then, you know, at 18 years old and now, you know, later.
So different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what would have happened, man.
Well, the further you go back, the greater the gap is, right?
Yeah, exactly. The greater the gap. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, what page are we on? 650.
654, is it?
Oh, 694. Here. 1, 2, 3. I had something from the third paragraph. You guys had anything there?
That's the last two sentences of the second paragraph.
Oh, okay. What was that?
Physical randomness and the constraint of the space-time rule set drive the actualization of natural events such as earthquakes or thunderstorms. Physical changes may be expressed as the choices that inanimate objects and energy make. I don't know why I had it highlighted.
Well, what choices do inanimate objects make?
It doesn't have any consciousness, so yeah, does it have any choice? It's just there, right? It's just
it's an algorithm. It's just based on an algorithm. So if you're looking at that as the choices,
right? Like for example, earthquakes. Like, how does the planet know that it's time to shake up this area of Earth? How does it know when the two plates are about to give off in pressure to create the earthquakes? There's no consciousness in that.
No, but it's like a formula, right?
Yeah,
so it's a program. So the program's like, oh, the temperature gets this high, the water boils.
Okay, it's a rule set then. It's based on rules. Okay, that makes sense.
Next paragraph, I have second sentence. Objects and energy must make their choices in strict obedience of the space-time rule set. So yeah, it goes what we were just saying. And then a couple of sentences later, let's call the results of physical or natural randomness rule-driven possibilities, as opposed to the choice-driven or free will-driven possibilities that are sometimes made by conscious, aware, sentient entities. Okay, so I guess that further elaborates on what we were just discussing. And then the next paragraph, the very first sentence, I had to really sit with this one for a second, but he says, sentient beings may contain small random components within their intent and larger random components within their perception, interpretation, and reaction to their internal and external environment. So I was trying to understand that, what he meant by that. What I think what he's saying is that, so the random components within our intent, that's due to maybe like our brain chemistry is creating constraints on our consciousness, right? So now our intent is skewed in a way because of the constraints on our consciousness to a small degree. And then the larger random components within perception, interpretation, and reaction to their internal and external environments. So the larger random components. So that has to do with the rule set. Well, they all both have to do with the rule set.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the larger random components are things within our external environment, right? Things that happen. Yeah.
Writing this at dinner time, right?
What's that?
I said, do you think he was writing this around dinner time?
I like that I like that analogy though. It's good.
Well, yeah, it says consider the random components influencing experience as spice, not the main ingredients. Randomness occasionally dominates the flavor of existence for some entities some of the time, usually short term. However, the quality of your choices are a much bigger driver of eventual long-term outcomes than randomness.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pamela was cooking.
You could smell the flavors, right?
Hey.
What would it taste like if I had this type of spice in it?
So then bringing that into context, so what is the spice analogous to? And then what is the main ingredient?
The main ingredient would be like your overall intent, and the spice would be the randomness, right?
The different varieties of, yeah.
So if
options.
he's saying like randomness is what? I mean, yeah, we need I think a good example of what that would be like.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted a good example of what it would be like. Or examples are nice.
I think that's what I need Tom to do, like a Cole's Note version of this. Like,
yeah.
What did you actually mean by this paragraph? And then he would, write a better explanation of it.
And then he always just simplifies it. He's always like, part of source. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
You don't understand, don't spend too much time on it. Just let it go. Go on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I get from him. Yeah. Yeah, it happens within TDC. Like,
okay.
But yeah, I think basically what he's saying is we need randomness. Randomness is important. There has to be some kind of randomness. And he does go on and he talks about it on the next page over. Actually, he talks about it in 2 pages, but the next page over, did you guys have anything from the first paragraph on page 695?
No.
I highlighted the first paragraph.
Yeah. You want to read it?
Sure. It is these experiences, these opportunities with their sometimes random components that enable us to evolve our consciousness. When free will meets an opportunity to interact with our internal or external environments, consciousness has the opportunity to grow, stagnate, or degenerate.
Yeah. And then, do you see why a virtual physical PMR type learning lab is so useful? Straightforward, interactive opportunities with clear results and feedback abound everywhere we focus our attention in PMR. Mm-hmm. And I really like this last 2 sentences where he says that PMR is constrained to be a highly interactive experience at the most basic level of relationship. Interacting with the other PMR players, an interaction of free will, is the main thing we do here in PMR. This interaction is the basis of our opportunity to evolve the quality of our consciousness. So it boils down to, we're here, it's all about our relationships with each other, how we relate to each other, right?
Yep. When I read that, when he said that interacting with other PMR players is the main thing we do here in this physical matter reality, I thought, there's a lot of introverts here. They're shy or don't want to meet with people, right?
Yes. Let's open up that discussion, because are we all? I'm an introvert.
I'm an introvert.
Yeah, Christine?
I don't know. A little bit of both. I'm really not sure.
Okay. But I'm learning to sort of forced myself to go out and talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned so much because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That actually surprises me that you say that, Daniel, because from what I know, you sort of very much interact with lots of people. You're doing
But you notice how I'm doing it on Facebook?
Right.
I ask questions, but I'm not physically there. I just ask it, and if people respond, great. If not, I'm not offended by it. But actually going and talking to people face to face,
I thought you were doing that project where you.
I did, but I forced myself to do that.
Oh, okay.
Right. And it was great. It was a great experiment. But I wouldn't have noticed it if I was still stuck being at that introverted level. Right.
Christine, you look like you're confused or something. Or like you're mad or something.
Meditating.
Your question about whether I'm an introvert versus an extrovert, and I don't know. I feel like I'm alone a lot, and so I think I probably definitely have introverted tendencies.
Have you taken the Myers-Briggs test?
Yes, I have taken the Myers-Briggs, and I am an ENFJ.
Okay, so it says you're an extrovert. The E represents extrovert.
Yeah, but it can. I don't know. I think it depends on the mood you're in the day you write.
Maybe you should do it again. I'm an INFP.
Oh, I'm an INFP too.
Yeah.
And sometimes an ENFP. So like.
Yeah.
Hey, we match.
So is Gail. Actually, a lot of people in this realm are INFPs or ENFPs. Yeah.
I joined a Facebook group called INFPs.
Really?
Yes.
What is that like?
Nobody talks.
Not a lot of conversation. Well, people do talk about things, and they really get emotional talking about things. They're all they can open up, right? We're all the same.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that seems true. Like they talk about, like, if you're not in a good mood or you're having trouble, the worst thing that you can do is to isolate yourself, and kind of in context of what he's saying here, that the most important thing that we do is to interact with other people. That kind of makes sense.
But for many people, it's really difficult to interact with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So our INFPs or introverts at a higher entropy or a lower consciousness state? And should we all try to be more extroverted?
No,
That's what
I don't think so.
That's what I'm reading from what he's saying.
I think it's important to look at why we're introverts and why we prefer or why we get recharged being alone. This thought came to me the other day, and I think it was based on some quote that I read from Jim Carrey, where he said something like, depression is the avatar being fed up with pretending to be something it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, then it made me think that, okay, so are we introverted, or do we get drained by being extroverts, by being out there and meeting people and connecting with people? Because that's the definition, is an extrovert gets recharged when they're out there connecting with people. An introvert gets drained when they're out there connecting with people and gets recharged being alone. And so when I look at myself, I get recharged when I'm around like in our groups and whatnot. I do get recharged from that. But I went to this party last weekend, and I didn't know anybody. I knew the host, didn't know anybody else. And I was drained in a sense, and I just felt like high entropy when I guess I just felt like out of alignment in my head, didn't feel comfortable being myself. And so there was a lot of self-reflection after that, kind of trying to understand myself more. And I think what it is that maybe possibly an introvert is somebody who doesn't feel confident enough being themselves when they're out connecting with other people. So that can be draining when you can't just be yourself. That's draining. And it's actually energizing to be able to be yourself and be fully yourself and connect with others who are fully themselves. That is recharging. It's just kind of a theory that I had. I don't know. And that's from experience, because when I was at the party, I didn't feel like I could be myself. And that comes down to my own insecurities of like what
party was it? Like, was it, did you feel like what kind of people were there? What was the party for?
it was
Was it one of these groups?
No, I didn't know anybody there. So normally I'm organizing and I know everybody there, right? But this time I didn't know anybody. I knew the host, and they just had moved into this great big huge fancy house, and there were a lot of successful people there, and so probably I was feeling inferior, maybe. Like it was just my insecurities were there, and so I wasn't my normal self because I didn't feel maybe good enough, and so that's not a re-energizing place to be.
Right.
And then again, though, I bring it back to myself trying to be accountable. Is because I have some more work to do on myself. So in a way, it's stepping outside of my comfort zone, which can help me to grow and have these realizations. Whereas before, I wouldn't have this realization. A year ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to go out with them again. Like, that wasn't fun. I want to be around my own tribe. You know what I mean? And I would, but it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with me and how I showed up in that space.
Right. I mean, but also, Vanessa, I think that like a party that you're talking about, it's not necessarily easy to assimilate into every crowd, and you can't necessarily talk about interesting topics, right? Or things that are like even remotely important.
And there was a really good talk that Tom did with Laurie Houston about around the Christmas time, talking about this. And he's like, the reason why, we don't want to go to these parties is because we make it all about us. And we were like, oh, what are we going to, like, nobody has anything interesting to say. And he's like, but go in there with the attitude of like, let me get to know you. Like, what's going on in your world, of really making about other, right? So it can be like a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I coach people on how to make conversations. And I said, as through my master coach, where she goes, always use the environment to create that conversation. So she always says, say you're at a buffet and you're an introvert or a shy guy, and you want to talk to someone, but you have no idea what to say.
Right.
So you're at the buffet table and you see broccoli, and the guy next to you goes, and you says, talk about something about broccoli. He goes, oh, broccoli. I just hate broccoli, right? And hopefully that guy will comment. So the vegetables or whatever it is at the buffet table will start the conversation. Then you can ask him, so what do you do? Like, and then you can introduce it. Like, I'm Daniel. And then one thing will lead to another.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a good conversation starter. I just want to be able to be myself every time I'm in conversation. Like, I noticed at that party, people were talking, and then there was an opportunity where I wanted to share something, and normally in our group, I would just share it. But I found myself like second guessing myself and being like, oh, why do you want to share that story? Like, is it because you want to be the center of attention? Like, I started like going into my head like that. And I was like, oh, I guess I won't share my story. And then I didn't share. And then I was actually just really quiet. Like I talked, like I asked questions, getting to know people, but I didn't share anything about myself. You know what I mean? So
people love talking about themselves though, right?
Yeah.
They do. I want to look at the intent. Like my intent for not sharing anything from my world was because I think I had that feeling of inferiority. Like I just didn't feel good enough to share. And that's being real, I can acknowledge that, and then I can change it, because until I acknowledge it, I can't change it.
Right.
And I do.
So did you ask people about them? Like,
Yeah, I met some people and made some friends, and it was okay. Like,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
thinking about what did we talk about? Remember how I was saying, like, how do you make it about other when it's already about other, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I really feel like even though you may love somebody as like a human being, being like, it's all about other and it's about love, you actually don't have to like them or their behavior, right?
Totally.
like, even though we feel like we need to like really make it about other and make it about love, I don't think it's really, you don't always have to put yourself in a situation where you're being like treated poorly.
No, you don't ever have to don't ever put yourself in that
Well, I
situation.
feel like that's what I was asking last week or the weeks prior, is that if you're in a situation where you're not being treated well, do you continue to do that just because it's about other?
No, you don't. No, because you're not the martyr. You're not like,
Right.
yeah, you don't ever have to do that.
So.
Yeah. So what is it for you? Because this is my first time that I've really looked at being an introvert, and like, what is it? What is the real reason behind that tendency, right? Because yeah, that's interesting how you, Daniel, you said that. So when I read this, it makes me feel like, well, we should all be extroverts.
Yeah, that's how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah. And so what are your thoughts around that?
I think I'm becoming more of an extroverted introvert. That's what I think I'm becoming. Because I'm not as shy as before, but I'm cognizant of it, and I will make conversations. But the conversations I have are really deep and meaningful. Like at a party, I don't go talk to everyone. I'll talk to maybe 2 or 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
But these are conversations that are interesting,
Mm-hmm.
right? I ask some really deep, simple questions, but they can go deep. And I ask a lot about the other person that that they feel, sort of makes them feel proud by telling me who they are, what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think from an introverted point of view, it's if we allow ourselves to do that, I think it's easy for introverted people to go and ask specific questions. They get more meaning out of that person. Whereas with an extroverted person, it's just like, chat, high level chat. And it's like, there's really no value in chatting. They want to try to talk to as many people as possible. That's my interpretation of it. I could be wrong.
I would say that the PMR, like basically what he's saying there is that interacting with others is the best opportunity for growth, right? And for introverts, you just have to work a little bit harder at that. But it doesn't mean that like, it's better to be an extrovert, because of what you just said, they could just be having lots and lots of very superficial conversations, right?
I think by going out and talking to other beings, you're creating more awareness for yourself, because there's things that you won't know. By talking to them, you'll start knowing about things that they know, and that just creates a bigger knowledge, greater knowledge for yourself. And if you're curious about it, you'll go learn more about it. Like I would have not known anything about Tom Campbell and consciousness until I met you, Vanessa. I was like a little over a year ago.
That's right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to look at about being an introvert, because this is so fascinating to me. I've never really like dove in deep around this. I just was like, yeah, I'm an introvert. I love being by myself. It's fun. Yeah. But now I see it's because it's comfortable and it's safe.
Right.
Safe bet. Being out there with new people, that can feel scary because of that fear of the unknown and the fear of what others think. They're going to judge me, so being able to face that fear, it really helps me to, I guess, lower my entropy, to grow and evolve. So I want to do that more. And what I'm noticing, I'm wondering if you guys do this too, is that, well, I think, Daniel, you do. I don't know, Christine, if you do this or not, but I think there might be, now if I think back to the Neuroinstitute, yeah, maybe there might be some of this, is that fear of inadequacy, how it manifests itself is in not really having a voice, like being able to like share what our feelings and our thoughts, even though they could be really helpful for so many people, we kind of play small and we don't share because of that fear of so many different fears that are at play there, right? Right. You guys have that at all?
Oh, for sure. Like I know I'm an authority on a lot of subjects, but I bring myself down, and because I do that, I don't speak up as much. Right.
Right. How about you, Christine? Do you do that too?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I think both times I was at the Monroe Institute, I was very, very quiet. But I will tell you, this particular book club, and in fact, being like the first couple times that we were doing like the recorded stuff, I was like real freaked out by it, like
Oh.
not comfortable whatsoever. And I will tell you that I think just having this interaction, like, and even having it like on YouTube is a little bit weird, but like, it makes me feel more confident. And it's like, well, I don't sound like a total idiot. Right? And like sometimes I do, but like, I feel like
Me too.
at least I can actually speak up. Like, I feel like it's helped me to have a voice. And
Yeah.
I remember actually, so when I bought this apartment, they have like an association, and they had a meeting about like, if you need an electrician, or there was a meeting about, different home services, and it's in an auditorium, and I sat like second row, and I actually asked questions. And I will tell you, had it been 6 months prior, I wouldn't have asked questions, because
Oh, wow.
I sort of fear of like this kind of fear of being like seen. And really, it's like that's actually enormously egotistical, because it's like nobody really cares about me, like they're there to like learn their information or whatever. But like I was at every question I had, I raised my hand and I asked,
Yeah.
Good for you.
Really do, like, yeah. And I really feel like this particular format has helped me a lot. Like, even just in having this confidence to say what I'm thinking, and whether I'm agreeing or disagreeing, because we don't always agree, and I don't always understand everything, so to really be like open enough to say, I don't get it, or I don't think so, or this is what I think. It's like,
Do you think it's the environment that we've created to allow you to become more confident?
Absolutely.
And then you've taken what you know here outside of this environment.
Right. And so that's a very good example of what he just says in that paragraph, that interactions are the most valuable thing. So what I've taken from this has helped me apply it to my life in this PMR offline.
So it's the transferable skills that we bring in, right?
And real skills, like
real skills.
Stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Very cool. Yeah. I love that. Huh. So yeah, I'm noticing this too with myself, is that I get intimidated sharing my voice. Sorry, I'm like walking all around my house. Is that distracting? Just looking for something here. But yeah, I want to overcome that, and I feel like I need to overcome that. And that's part of my process here in this lifetime, is overcoming that fear of not being good enough, inadequacy. And the best way to overcome that is by sharing my voice and sharing my truth, sharing my ideas.
Right.
Yeah. But it freaks me out. Like when I think about doing it on a large scale, I get really nervous and scared.
You're nervous because you're thinking about yourself, though, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like Christine said, it's super egotistical.
Yeah.
Because nobody cares. Everybody else is thinking about themselves.
Everyone's wondering about themselves. Right? They're probably thinking, well, look at Vanessa. She's up on stage talking, and like, wow, I could never do that.
Yeah, or they're thinking,
thing, right?
or other mean things. They're thinking. The tomatoes are gonna be thrown at my head.
I realized that I've been doing more lunch and learn since learning about Tom Campbell, and it's great because when I'm talking to people about what I do, I'm being more. I speak authentically and more from the being level. Really inspiring people, and I've actually made people cry during my lunch and learns.
You're like, I love that.
I love it. I love it. It's fun to see people cry when I talk. I know this is passionate about that. My objective is to make people cry. No.
Right. Nice, Daniel.
To reach them, right?
To reach them, and when you've made them cry, you really touch their heart.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I last week I was talking to a recruiter, and I was telling him a story about one of my experiences at TED. And he goes, stop. I go, why? He goes, you're about to make me cry.
Oh.
Right? And this is a guy. And I said, okay, fine, I'll stop. Right? And he goes, I know it's such a great story, but you know, the way you say it, it's like, it's touching my heart.
Oh, you got to share the story now.
So the story is like, during one of the TED Talks, I had met a person. I think I told you this, Vanessa. She's a physicist and a mathematician. And her job was to look for stars in the galaxy. Right?
Okay.
The only problem was that she was blind. So how do you look for stars when you're blind? Right? So she said, well, I don't look for stars the way you look for stars. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, I listen for stars. And I have someone digitize pictures and I'll listen to it. And if something sounds a little different, I'll get that person to zoom into that specific area. So he'll zoom in, nothing, zoom in, nothing. And all of a sudden you see a faint light, right? And then that's a star, right? And you zoom in a little more and that becomes, you know, even a natural star. And I said, well, how did you develop this? I said, she said it was just learning to be a little bit different, learning, you know, you guys are able to see, but I can't see. So how do I see things differently, but able to do the same job, right? And she goes, if you lose one of your senses, your other senses work harder to achieve the same results.
Right.
So I was able to use my hearing as a replacement for seeing. And then she told me this, goes, whenever you're eating, close your eyes and then taste the food. You'll notice that the taste is so much richer. You can taste the salt, you can taste the spices, you can taste all the different flavors coming out of that food that you're eating.
Yeah.
So I tried it and I asked my kids to do that. I goes, well, wow, that is. Right?
Yeah.
So out of all the other talks that I heard, this person was like really inspirational. She, I had the opportunity to actually help her with her lunch. So we're at the buffet table and I had the container and I said to her, okay, these are potatoes. Would you like potatoes? She goes, I'll get the potatoes. Just show me where the spoon is. I'll figure out how much I need. I'll put it in the container. So again, she didn't need to see. Her feeling with her spoon was the way of seeing, right? The weight of the spoon and everything. She knew when she had enough. All I had to do was tell her what that specific food item was.
Right.
And then she knew when she had enough. And I said, okay. So then I walked her up to her hotel room at, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And she told me a little bit more about her story and all that. And it's like, she made me cry. Right. And it was so passionate and so amazing what she could do. She was able to see earlier when she was a child, but then she lost her eyesight. Right. So she knew what, you know, the sky was blue and the grass is green, all that. Right. So she lost a lot of that, but she had retained that memory, that vision. And yet she was still able to, you know, do the job of finding stars when she was blind.
Pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that stuff is really interesting when you think about like sort of people who don't have their senses, how that affects, like what does that leave you with, you know?
Yeah. But a lot of people look at it as, oh, I can't see anywhere, and then they, you know, they don't go further out in terms of, you know, trying to make it successful for them, right? Whereas this person, I'm blind, so how am I going to be able to see a star? How am I going to find a star?
Right.
She pushed herself and was able to do it. Right?
Somewhat related to that, I was watching some weird video on YouTube, and did you guys know that there is no sound on the moon? There's no sound.
There's no air, right?
There's no atmosphere, so sound can't travel.
Yeah, exactly.
That blew my mind. I was like, how is that possible? So you could talk, right? But nothing would come out.
Well, there's no moon.
There's no moon? I haven't heard that one before, Vanessa.
It's blue.
Right? Oh, there's no moon. Now I get it.
Yeah, for reading about it. We only have, I think, 2 pages. Oh no, we have 3 pages left. Yeah, that was a good aside about relationships, though, because when it comes down to it, that's why we're here. We're here to relate to each other, right? It's based on how we choose to show up in our relationships. That will determine our growth as consciousness. So yeah, that motivates me to want to be out there relating to people, connecting with people. Right. So, yeah.
Well, I say meaningful connections. That's where I look at relationships as meaningful relationships.
Right.
Not superficial.
I wonder, like, when you guys talk about being introverts, is it really that, like, that superficiality is what is draining to you? Right. So I know, Vanessa, you were saying that, if you go to a party, you try and make it about other. Well, there's a lot of superficial people out there that only talk about high level things, right? Or, just like very surface level things. So is that what drains an introvert?
Well, it's my reaction to that. It's either going to drain me or re-energize me. Because if my reaction is sending them love, and looking beyond the surface of what they're putting out, empathizing with their fear and knowing that they just can't go deep because they're afraid to, and that's okay. I still love them, and if I'm doing that, then that can energize me. But I'm not there yet. I'm not there. I'm still like, oh, look, they just talk about the superficial stuff. Like, I should go hang out with my other homies because they go deep, like. That's why I get drained.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it just comes down to like self-awareness and ownership of how we choose to show up, right? Always comes back to that.
Well, I always say to myself now, like, if I'm at a party and I don't know anyone, I want to make it a meaningful time for myself. So that's why I kind of force myself and go talk to people. But I always think I have this instinct that you sort of put your radars on, and then you sort of look for someone you want to talk to, and you sort of find a couple of people that, this person looks like a good person to talk to, and then you sort of move in and you start that conversation with them.
Yeah, my friend Jolanda is really good at that. So yesterday was Women's Day, and so I got a group of women together. We went to this Women's Day conference. I don't know, there was probably like 200 women there or something, and it was these really great keynote speaker. And she was talking about she's a like an interviewer on TV somewhere. I don't watch TV, so I don't know any of the people on TV, but she was there and she did a keynote talk on her nerves. She's like, growing up, I was super nervous, super shy, and I had to overcome that because now I speak in front of millions. And she's like, but just to let you know, I get nervous every time. She's like, before I even came up here, I was nervous. She's like, that just shows that like you're alive, it's excitement. Yeah. So she was really inspiring. But Jolanda, actually the way her and I first met was that we like connected from across the room of this like party of 50 people, and I was like, oh, all these people are superficial now. This was a few years ago, and then in walked Jolanda, and I saw her, and I was like, oh, what's up with her? And then we connected, and now we've been like really good friends since then. She hosts Conscious Connections, yeah. But yesterday when we were at this event, same thing happened. We all sit down at our table, and she's like, oh, I just met this really cool lady. She's gonna come over and talk with us. She's gonna teach us all African dancing. And then the lady came over, and she's like, hey, she's talking to us. And turns out this lady sits on the board of the Coquitlam Foundation. So when she hears that we're a nonprofit, she's like, oh, I'll sit down for coffee. I'll tell you guys what's like available for you. And it ends up being like a really strong connection. Yeah, just because like you were saying, Daniel, like having that intuition, I guess, about who to connect with and whatnot. Yeah. So that was interesting. I really, another thing that happened yesterday is, so when you're with a group, it's so easy to just be with that group and not have to socialize outside of it, right?
Yeah.
But then I saw this guy that I have a major crush on.
Yeah.
I know. And he's like the mayor of our city. And so like when I saw him, I don't know, a few months ago, and I was too shy to talk to him. But then yesterday I've got all my girls and they're like, go talk to him. So I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I'll go talk to him. And I'm like, Gail, come with me. And I like brought up some moral support with me. And then I go up to him and I'm like, oh, hi, you're, I said his name and I'm like, and you're the mayor of the city, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm Vanessa. And then I like totally drew a blank. And then I'm like, I don't know what else to say. I'm like, that's all I got, man.
Oh my God.
Use the environment.
A good start, though.
It's a good start, yeah.
That's a riot. Did you
But
say anything else?
I mean, I don't know, a little bit. It didn't go very well. I mean,
A for effort, right? I mean,
thank you. A for effort.
You get A for effort for sure.
Yeah. And next time I'll take a bigger step, right? It's like little steps.
That's true.
Next time you talk to him, you know, you never know.
You know, could get married.
Yeah. Well, you got to invite us to the wedding, okay? If you get married to that guy, that's a riot.
Oh man, yeah. Funny how our insecurities show up. Mine show up with boys apparently, but I've never had that before though. So it's interesting. Yeah.
I wonder if that's just like. I wonder if you feel like you know that could potentially be a real connection there. That it's like scares you a little bit.
Maybe. And then I like couldn't stop thinking about him after. So then during the breakout sessions, I couldn't pay attention because he was in my mind.
Right.
And then I like replayed the moment over and over, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I say more? You know, like, so human. I'm so human.
See, this is a good opportunity for you to go into NPMR and replay it.
Exactly.
Right. It's
pull that data out and say, what if?
Right.
Yeah, I guess so. But I can't change the future though. Like I can't change what already happened.
You know, you just to revisit it. You don't have to like. You don't have to change it.
Okay.
Well, I guess what you can do is go pay him a visit at another function and
go visit him in NPMR. With them.
That's what I'm saying. Is just go replay it, and you can be like, okay, next time. You know,
next time I see it, because your data set now is okay. If I see him next time, you've recreated that scene as okay. Now I've seen my simulation on the what if and what I can do. So next time I see him, I can take that experience and apply it to the current PMR.
Oh, maybe I should do that. Yeah. I'm going to see him again in like a couple weeks. So
there you go.
Are you saying like I should rehearse it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just play that scenario over and over again, right? Because you can go back and replay it. You can change it too if you don't like it.
Right.
Thank you for the love advice. I'm lost in that department. I'm like a little preschooler when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I think you should definitely use your imagination and be like, okay, maybe I could have this conversation, and don't have too much like attached to it, but just say these are the 10. These are the
options that are available in front of me, right?
That's right. These are the 10 fabulous things I could say, right?
I like it to be natural though and like organic.
It will be if you want it to be, but it's like that doesn't mean you can't practice it. You're gonna have to like live in the moment, you know.
Yeah.
It prepared you for that moment, right?
I mean, don't bring a script with you, Vanessa.
Write it on my hand and then be like, oh shit, it's all sweating off.
Right.
He said this. Okay, here's the response for that.
Yeah, hey, you weren't supposed to say that. I don't have a response to that.
That wasn't in the script. That wasn't in the script.
Yeah. Rewind.
Right.
Oh, you guys are funny.
That's funny.
We got 2 pages here. What else did you guys have highlighted? That next
695.
Yeah, and then we ended up talking about relationships. We're looking at the second paragraph on 695. I had a star and wrote interesting beside it. Did you guys? I don't know.
Which one?
The second paragraph on 695.
The set of possibilities.
Yeah. I don't know why I wrote interesting beside it. What is it?
I'm talking about like group behavior.
Oh, yeah. The last line, I don't know, recall that a motivation and intent that has Large random components represent a less developed consciousness with large entropy. This is true of group consciousness as well as individual consciousness. So that has large random components. What does he mean by large random components?
I mean, maybe that's like some sort of like large, like it's just a very random group. Like, for example, Daniel's group on Facebook, that's all his,
INFPs?
right, is less random than just a Facebook group of people who are interested in Myers-Briggs, right?
Right. Got you. Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking about like this neighborhood Facebook group is super random, right? Like you get people, just all different types of people, right? So you ask a question, you get all different types of responses, and it's very random, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like his group, they all are the same kind of people. Pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Anything else on that page?
No.
I had on the very last paragraph, I had bracketed off, where he just talked about the psi uncertainty principle again. That it says, although recall that it is uncertainty according to the psi uncertainty principle that allows good planning and manipulation from NPMR to influence PMR happenings without being obvious, without stepping outside the space-time rule set and PMR causality. Consider that natural uncertainty and small random components modeled within the digital consciousness system as a lubricant that helps make the system work. I really liked just that first part of that paragraph where he said that allows manipulation from NPMR to influence PMR happenings without being obvious. Like just that alone, I'm like, oh, like that feels super clear.
Yeah.
Other explanations of the psi uncertainty principle, I understood it, but this is just basically, it's like, we're going to make it so we're going to affect things, but just don't be obvious. Okay. Don't be obvious about it.
All right.
Yeah.
So I like that.
So from the aside, I had the third paragraph. Another point worth mentioning is that the clever evaluative software that defines significant by filtering out non-productive reality states does not need to be any more mystical than our AI or expert system softwares. Like its PMR cousin, it utilizes evaluative criteria, pattern recognition, history files, statistics, and predictive algorithms. Its accuracy is dependent upon an extremely detailed and unusually complete knowledge base. And then he goes, I have evoked or assumed nothing fundamentally new or spooky here, only bigger, faster, and better. So I had there, like, it's not as difficult as it sounds. Yeah.
That next sentence, it says, we humans have a tendency to see ourselves with inflated significance. Reminds me of what I was saying, where it's like, people don't really care if I talk or don't talk, right? Like, I didn't do it for a long time because I thought that it would matter, and it doesn't matter that much, you know?
Yeah. You didn't do it for a long time, you said?
I didn't speak up, right? Like, right. And so I didn't felt like I had much of a voice for a long time, but in reality, it's like, that is just me having this sort of fear that really is based on nothing, because nobody's really paying that much attention anyways. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a positive way, like, you should just do what you want to do and, say what you want to say, because people really aren't paying that much attention. Like, everybody's really involved in their own world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because last year I had a new career, and I remember sitting down with my friend Taryn as I was starting my new career, And she's like, are you like nervous to go out on your first contract? She's like, you never done this before. Like, aren't you nervous? You're gonna get in front of these Indigenous people and you're gonna teach them these like topics that you've never taught before. She's like, dude, aren't you nervous? And I'm like, no, I'm not actually. I'm not at all. She's like, how come? And I'm like, well, because it's not about me. I'm like, it's about them. I'm here to serve them. It's all about them. I'm here to help them. So why would I be nervous? I'm serving them. And then what's interesting is, and now I'm on another new career path this year. I was talking to her the other day, and I'm like, oh, I'm super nervous, super nervous about this career path. She's like, oh, and I'm actually I gave her my old job. Like, she went in and met the owners and stuff, and so now she's starting it. And so I was telling her how I'm nervous about this new career. She's like, oh yeah. And then with this, what she's going into, taking over my old job, she's like, you know, at first I was thinking that I would be really nervous. And she's like, then I kept thinking about you, like how you just did this. And she's like, that's really cool. And then I realized that, yeah, it's I'm going there to help them. It has nothing to do with me. So why should I be nervous? I'm just going to go and do my best. And then I'm like, oh my God, I said that to you a year ago. And now here I am today saying, I'm super nervous about this new career, but I need to take my advice that I felt last year and apply it to this new career, right? So yeah, it's like Tom said, it's like we always are given just enough, like just the right amount that challenges us, you know, wherever we are in life. It's like that's what we're given. Like when we're 5, we're given just enough responsibility to help us to grow. And when we're 35, it's more responsibility. And then, you know, as we grow up and we are more capable of bringing on, accepting new responsibilities, and we're given more and more. But it's always just enough to help you grow. We're meeting you wherever you're at. And like, look at where he's at. Like, he's got a lot of responsibilities. But he can handle it all, and he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. Anyway. So we're on the last.
About perfection and infinite.
Which paragraph?
So actually, write the next paragraph. Please make note of the fact that thus far I have not evoked, nor will I evoke, either perfect or infinite processes. OS contains finite numbers of beings and objects within finite significant choices and finite significant random events that impact, influence, or interact with a finite universe of objects and energy capable of moving or changing in a finite number of significant ways. So what's the purpose of all that finite talk? It's part of a bigger system, even, right? So like whatever we think is infinite actually has a boundary at some point. And has to
I think he mentioned that before, was that it's not infinite, it's a finite, it's just a huge number. Right? But it's
why does that matter? Why does that matter though? Why does he focus so much on it's not infinite?
Yeah, I know. I wanted to get clarification on that too, because he always says it has to be a closed system. Like it has to be, because there's no such thing as infinite. That's just like saying
it's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. Exactly. It has to be closed. But I would like to understand that more too. Like, well, why does it have to be closed? But now I found Daniel going, and how does that work? And why?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like for me, it's like, because it's like the sequel, right? Like there has to be something even bigger than that, right? So,
yeah.
Right? Like how we're thinking about like even one of those charts that he showed us, like all of these things in our universe are kind of tangent to one another, right? But they're all part of a big old bubble or whatever, right? And then that thing has to be a part of something else.
Like one of those dolls, you know, that have like you open the doll and then there's another doll inside of it.
Matryoshka dolls.
Yeah, Matryoshka. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, they're from Ukraine.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So you would know. Yeah, it's like that. But then there's always a final one, you know, like the one big container of it. And it just keep going and going and going. Like it stops. Yeah, I don't know. I need to understand that more too. It's like, why
That'd be
does
a
what?
good question to ask Tom. Like, why not infinite, or what is his why finite? Like, how does he discern finite versus infinite? Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I think he just says because there's no such thing as infinite. It's like kind of like a made up concept because you can't even fathom how big it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it says it's just a huge number, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I had the last paragraph on that page.
I had it highlighted as well.
You want to read it?
Sure, some may think that the data storage requirements and processing requirements are too large to be workable. If you believe that, it is because your vision of what is possible is stuck in the PMR of the 20th century. To
Yeah.
an apparently infinite, highly evolved, aware digital consciousness that employs processing speeds and storage capacity trillions upon trillions upon trillions, of order of magnitude greater than what you could ever imagine in your wildest theoretical dreams. The computational burden is almost trivial. The computational requirements are significant, but they are also finite and well within the capacity of TBC. So you know what I did? My first computer had 64K of RAM, and now my newest computer has 12 gigabytes of RAM. So within a span of 20 years, it's like 187,500 times more capacity.
Wow. Really? Is that how much it is?
Yeah, I calculated. It's like, wow. And then even looking at the power of computational power is just mind blowing.
Wow.
From 20 some odd years, 30 years ago. Wow.
What did that first computer even do?
Play games.
Play games?
Use it to play games. I did some programming, but there's like even your phone has more power than those computers way back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we ran over time, so maybe we'll just take a minute here to wrap around up. Final thoughts, insights?
I had a fun time today.
Yes, me too. For
Yeah.
totally hated. It was a great conversation.
I like the discussion about the introvert. I like the discussion of how we were able to pull some meaning out of things that we had some difficulty understanding at first. Bring it back when you're around and create some more awareness of that.
I did too. Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Thank you guys. I like being able to chit chat about it, right?
Yeah.
700.
And that's why I think when he says that, you have to talk to other beings to create a more meaningful understanding of life.
Well, I think to me, like, I read the book just to come to book club, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard and it's challenging, but it's like I really get way more out of the conversation than I do reading the book,
Yeah.
I've said it before, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even having that awareness, like as I'm reading it, I love knowing that you guys are reading it too, because I'm always like, I wonder how they're like absorbing this information.
And it's cool how when you have something highlighted, I have it highlighted as well, and Nadine or Christine will have it highlighted as well.
Right.
We're all the same thoughts. Right?
The conversation about it's coming to an end, and that do you start again? And I wonder what it would be like. That experience will be a little bit different reading it, well, very different the second time, because those passages that we liked or notated, not only have they been underlined once, they've been underlined and then discussed in group. So you're kind of coming back to it like for a third time. Right?
But you're at a higher consciousness level, so
right. So how cool is that going to be to go back and like come from a different perspective? And it's going to be 6 months down the line or whenever, so you also have 6 months more of life experience,
right,
to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's right. It'll be very cool. I'm excited. I just took a peep ahead, and it looks like the next chapter is like 10 pages or something. Are we wanting to do just one chapter?
Knowing how the complexity is, I think we might want to do that.
Yeah.
Then the next chapter is what, another
15 or something.
Yeah, that's 25. Maybe just stick to one chapter.
I'm always happy with less. Less is more.
Because I think book section 6 is that should go fairly fast.
Yeah, I like that he has like a lot of quotes in there, and
Yeah.
section 6 is fun. Yeah.
Okay, so it's 80, just 82.
Just say
Yeah, it's 82.
Okay. And what time is next week?
Oh, I can do earlier next week. I don't have to take my son to the doctor. So, what time do you guys want to do?
16.
I'm gonna do 4 o'clock, like 1 o'clock for you guys.
1 o'clock's
Yeah.
fine.
Sure.
Or when do you want to do it? I mean, I can work around. I can do it whenever.
I'm okay for 1.
1 works for me too. Yeah.
Okay, so 1 o'clock. All right, cool. See you at 1.
See
All
you.
right, guys.
Have a great weekend.
You
All
too.
right.
Okay.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.
Okay, see you.